All right, we're live for this broadcast, the second live chat slash Q&A. So I'm gonna give a little bit of time for people to hop in and you know give them some time to hop on and join the live chat. What's up, man? What's up, Jake? What's going on, man? How's everything going on, or how's everything going in your part of the world? While we wait for some more people to hop on, it takes a couple minutes. Today, what I would like to discuss is, today what I'd like to get into is, of course, kind of recap the whole Jay Park, Brian Ortega, Hannah Gracie, Korean Zombie, everything that happened in the last week, and kind of close the book on that situation. It seems like those people have decided to stop all the nonsense and kind of move on. Um, Also, talk about one championship and them canceling all their shows and moving most of the shows to Singapore. And we'll talk about that and some of the matchups and go into the Infinity cards that are coming up, which are going to be delayed until the end of May and furthermore and a bunch of matchups that are coming up in one championship. Uh, and we'll talk about some of the champions that are not lined up for fights and what's going on with them and discuss all of that. We'll get into Rizin a little bit and maybe some Road FC and anything that you guys want to get into. We get into those things. We might not even talk about all of that. I mean, sometimes this, like last time, it just goes off and veers off into weird parts and sections. So whatever you got. What's up, Tan? What's going on? Schools. Jake said schools and restaurants closing here. How about you? No, everything's getting back to normal over here. In Korea, everything's getting back to normal. Like for a couple weeks, it was I just kind of self isolated myself or social distancing or self quarantine or whatever. I didn't really need to or have to, but I did it anyways and did it to my family also. And yeah, and it seems like it's going getting back to normal. Still, here and there, there's people getting the coronavirus, but Korea they do a very good job of notifying everybody of areas or infected people or where they were infected. So yeah, so it's not a really a big concern right now in Korea. uh even though even though there's no shows in the next couple of weeks, and I'll get into that too because there is a show coming up next month. And there has not been anything said about that show. There has not been any matchups announced, so we'll see what happens. Do you should the UFC fine or suspend Ortega? I don't think they should. I don't think that the I don't think there's no reason to suspend Ortega. When was the last time they suspended somebody? When was the last time they fined somebody? Outside of cutting weight or anything like that. It's maybe John Jones. Because of uh, was it because of steroids or was it because of he hit the woman with his car or not hit the woman with the car, but he got in a car accident? Maybe. But I don't know. I don't think Brian Ortega should be fined or suspended at all. I think that they handled it the way that they should have. Should he have went over there and slapped Jay Park? No, but it is what it is. It's over now. Okay, so I guess we're gonna get into that. Before we talk about the UFC a little bit more in detail, I want to give my final thoughts on the whole Jay Park and Brian Ortega and the Korean Zombie. Okay, so um, so after so that Monday, right? I did a live chat last Monday morning, right? So after the live chat last Monday morning in the US, which is Monday night in Asia, Jay Park went on the Arrow Hawani show, right? And I mentioned that he was going to be on the show last week, and it would have been interesting to see what he says, right? And number one, I thought he should have never went on the Arrow Hawani show. That's kind of, I don't know. It's almost like you're asking for attention by going on the Arrow Hawani show. So he said some interesting things in that interview, right? Um, Number one, he says um, he never wrote any posts on social media for the Korean Zombie. He doesn't even have access to the his social media accounts, and I guess you got to believe him because that's what he says. Um, so Jake, if I say something that is wrong, or if you could correct me on anything, let me know because I'm gonna try to explain it the best as possible. So Jay Park says, I never wrote anything on social media for the Korean Zombie. I don't have access to his accounts. Um, and one thing about Jay Park is he is the CEO of the management company that that the Korean Zombie is a part of. Um, and he kind of goes through that history of like how did they meet. And then one thing that was interesting is he said that he was talking about the interview that he did before, where it was the Korean Zombie and him and Ariel Hawani, right? And and he was talking about he was there on the show because um he was there to support the Korean Zombie. And I thought that was kind of weird because who goes on a show to support the fighter? Like, you don't really see that. Like, why would they do a three-way? He must have been there for some certain purpose, right? For some reason, like there must have been some kind of underlying reason why he was there, and most likely it was to translate because Eddie Chaw was sitting right next to the Korean Zombie, and he could translate way better than Jay Park. So I don't understand why he was there. Number one. So, anyways, in the interview, he also said that once he got into uh the company with him, like he told him, oh yeah, he said that he told him not to talk. Like he never told the Korean Zombie to like talk shit or talk trash or anything like that. But then later on in the interview, he said that he told the Korean Zombie to be more vocal. So there's a thin line between that, right? There's a thin line between being more vocal and talking shit. Very thin line. So I don't know, because he said he never told the Korean Zombie to do any of these things. So I feel like Park, I don't know. I just don't like him being involved in this at all. Like, why was he in that interview? Why is he doing the Ariel Hawani interview? And it doesn't make any sense. Like, he should have never been involved in the whole situation at all. Like he's not a fighter. He's not a coach. He's not a manager. He's not even his manager. Is he his manager? Because he's never said that, right? He just says he's his friend, right? He's there to support the Korean Zombie. And if you're there to support the Korean Zombie, you should not go on interviews with the Korean Zombie. It makes no sense, right? So now Brian Ortega, he apologizes twice, which is kind of funny to me. The first apology, he didn't really apologize. He was just like, I slapped the instigator, blah blah. And I kind of agree with the Brian Ortega. He was there kind of to instigate a little bit. He did some instigating in that, and like regular people like me or you or anybody else, nobody likes an instigator, man. It's like, why are you there? You're an instigator because you're there and you're kind of like pumping up the situation in a negative way for no reason. You shouldn't even say anything. You should just be there as a bystander. Don't even get involved. That's you. Jay Park should never been involved. Henner, he kind of like adds more fuel to the fire and says like, yeah, bully proof, you instigate, blah blah blah. And then Henner apologizes. Then after Henner apologizes, Brian Ortega makes this long post and apologizes, like, I guess formally apologizes, and basically the Korean Zombie accepts the apology. Korean Zombie also says that actually, let's go back. After Henner uh, like was it after Henner, uh the first apology, you could actually go to Facebook's Brian Ortega's Facebook page, and it's still up there. It was only deleted on Instagram. I believe it's still up there on his Facebook, because when I looked on his Facebook later on, it was there. Um, so Henner, the Korean Zombie wrote a post about Henner, like, we met Henner, I respect Henner, but like, it was kind of like shitty to support Brian Ortega's behavior, blah blah. Then Henner apologized, formally, because Henner's like, he's a big part of that bully proofing movement and shit. So, uh, yeah. So, anyways, so he apologizes. Korean Zombie accepts both their apologies, Ortega's and Henner's apology. Says that he shouldn't have talked shit, and he's gonna be more careful when moving forward, and he never knew that this is what it could lead to, right? So I was like, cool, man, it's over. Like, the Korean Zombie accepts their apology. They both apologize, and that's what I expected from both of them, because Ortega's never been that type of guy to talk shit and all that stuff, right? So you guys know what's up. And Henner also. So it seemed like it was over. Then a couple hours later, someone sends me a link, right? Some anonymous person sends me a link, and he says, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, I don't know what you saw." So I clicked the link, and it's Jay Park on his Instagram doing some like freestyle, or I don't even, it wasn't even a freestyle, because he wrote the whole thing down in the description or whatever, all the lyrics and everything, talking about, like, he got killers on standby, and I was just like, man, if you don't want to be caught in the middle of everything, number one, why are you on the Hawani show? Number two, why are you doing a freestyle on your Instagram? Like, you just want attention, man. Like, why don't you, like, disappear, dude? Like, why are you even, like, giving a freestyle about it? Like, it's over. The Korean Zombie accepted the apologies. Like, you should move on, man. You're not even involved. Like, I wish somebody else would slap his ass, like, just a regular person, to be honest with you. Like, you just gotta, this is the fight game. Just, if you can't, you know, you should not be involved at all. So, anyways, so go to Jay Park's, like, I don't even follow Jay Park or nothing like that. So, like, someone sent me that, and I listened to it, and I read it, and I said, "Man, this is a fucking idiot. Jay Park's a fucking idiot. He's like Justin Bieber. He's like fucking uh he's like one of those characters, man. Like, he's trying to, like, hang around the tough guys. And then hanging around the tough guys, which are the fighters, he feels like he's a tough guy too. And, like, man, it doesn't make any sense. Anyways, so from what I heard is that the fight is in negotiation, because the zombie said, "I'll fight Ortega." Ortega said, "Okay, I'm waiting for you. Where's we're gonna fight." They're in negotiations. All they're waiting for is Korean Zombie's eyes to be back to normal, and once his eyes get back to normal, and which is projected to be July or August, that's where they're gonna book the fight. So basically, we'll most likely hear a fight announcement in maybe May or June, and it'll be July or August at the earliest. So hopefully, that happens, and yeah. Anyways, so we'll see what we got here. I was gonna say he was enjoying the attention from the fans. Maybe he was enjoying the attention, which is stupid, because he has like millions of followers, right? People are saying, like, he's world famous, but to be honest with you, a lot of people hate him too, man. He's done some stupid shit in the past, and this is just kind of like in line with some of the dumb shit that he did in the past. And like, I don't really follow him, but I hear about him from other people, because I'm in Korea, so what do you expect, man? There's people that I know will follow those types of things. Um, yeah. So, anyways, like, July, August, we're gonna see the Korean Zombie face off against Brian Ortega. The fight that we should have saw last December in Busan, right? But Ortega fucked his knee up. Basically, what happened was his knee went the other way, like his leg bent the other way, and then when it bent the other way, that's when he tore everything in his knee, and that's how the injury happened. And he was gonna fight anyways, but um, but his doctors and his team and stuff and told him like, hey man, you can't do that. So like, but Ortega has been around out for a long ass time, and it's gonna be interesting to see what kind of Ortega comes out in this. Now let's go back to some of these questions. Ortega be fined or suspended? Nah. What is it? Why do the so much criticism for continuing the closed door events, but one FC, not one FC? Okay, so this is a good question right here. Okay, let me put this question up. So you guys see the question on the screen? Why does the UFC has so much criticism or have so much criticism or is having so much criticism for continuing their closed door events, but not one FC? The reason why um the UFC is having so much criticism is because it's the UFC. You know what I mean? Like, and the current state of the United States, like the current state of the United States is in a terrible situation right now, and they're not ready for this coronavirus, and it's spreading like wildfire. And then people are on self quarantine. People are isolating themselves, and and it's the UFC, man. Like, what do you expect? Like, when you're the UFC, um, you're gonna get the most criticism. One FC, they don't get no criticism because it's like the virus has somewhat passed, right? And they're not they just rescheduled. They haven't actually had an event. The UFC actually had an event last week, and then they're gonna have an event this week, and they're kind of giving more details of what they're going to do, right? And there's more movement, of bodies for the UFC to get a show done. One championship, they haven't had a show yet. They haven't done anything. They just said that they're moving all their shows. They canceled a couple shows and they're moving the rest of the shows, 4 shows into Singapore, right? And we're gonna have those shows there. No fights have been announced. So you don't even know if they're really gonna have it, right? To be honest with you. So that's why. Because it's the UFC. UFC is number one in the world, and then UFC is getting more attention because they're the number one, right? And also it doesn't help with Bellator when they canceled their show and they paid all the fighters, even though they really didn't have to. Actually, they did because they made weight. So yeah, they did have to pay the fighters. But anyways, yeah, that doesn't help either. Scott Coker did a pretty that's a pretty like strategic move by Scott Coker. I think that I don't know if he did that on purpose, but it was a good fucking move by Scott Coker by canceling that show and showing that you're looking out for the health of the teams and the fighters and the coaches and the fans and everybody just by shutting it down and paying everybody. Will the UFC ever do that? Probably not. I read something about how the UFC is, you know, the people that bought the UFC, right? They're not like they're in somewhat of a debt, right? And by shutting down for like a few weeks, that could fuck them up, and that's not a good sign for the UFC actually. Uh, but we won't see any criticism for one championship until one championship actually has a show, and it's gonna be hard for them to have a show. From what I saw is that Singapore, man, they have like uh, either they have a complete ban for travelers for certain countries to come into the country, and then certain countries, uh, you have like a 14-day quarantine, right? So which means that if they arrive in Singapore, they have to be in quarantine for 14 days before they can actually step foot into the country. And if one championship has shows, they need to fly fighters in f- probably more than 14 days before the show and have them in quarantine and take that chance of them, you know, uh, being infected or not. I don't know, man. Like that, and that's a lot of fucking money, dude. Like you have to house multiple people for 14 months or 14 days, and then they could or could not step into the country to actually compete. that's a big risk. That's a lot of financial burden for one championship. And but it seems like they got a lot of money, so it could be possible. But I don't know, man. Like it's a massive burden. Okay, so let's look at one championships. It's in Singapore, right? Singapore is a tiny fucking country. So when you look at them, they got a few gyms there. You got uh Evolve, of course, right? And they have like more than 10, 20. They have like 20 fighters, right? Pro fighters that could compete. Then you got Juggernaut Fight Club. They have a bunch fighters there. I think you got like Highlight. They have a few fighters in there, and then maybe a couple small gyms throughout the country, right? So you could put a card together with those fighters, but it's still going to be hard, man. And then you got the countries that are connected to Singapore that could drive in, right? And probably you don't need to quarantine those people from those countries, which is like Malaysia. Then you got gyms in Malaysia, like what is it, Monarchy MMA, who has a bunch of fighters there, and there's a bunch of gyms in Malaysia. You got uh, Gian Razuan's gym is over there in Malaysia. They could drive in and compete on these shows. Yeah, so like there's still a possibility, right, without this quarantine, but most of the fighters, they're gonna have to fly in, and it's gonna be interesting to see how they're gonna work this out with this quarantine thing going down in Singapore. But Singapore is doing a very good job of like isolating everything, and kind of like what Korea did is they isolated everything, and then the citizens know exactly what's going on every single hour. And then if you need to get tested, you could go get tested fast, and if you need to isolate yourself, you could isolate yourself quickly. And there's not much, because like I'm pretty sure companies and businesses shut down because they don't want to spread the infection. So that's what they're doing. Now let's see what else you guys got. I was gonna say he was enjoying the tension. Helwani was excited having on the show. It seems, yeah, probably. Uh, UFC also got more attention for putting that event on over the weekend because nothing else was on sports wise. And maybe, yeah, and yeah, the UFC got more attention because of that UFC Brasilia, and maybe that's why they're continuing, man. That's why they saw the numbers for that event, and they're like, "Oh, holy shit, man! We gotta continue." Because I saw something about Dana White. He said the only way they're gonna get shut down is if there's a government shutdown, like the government comes in and shuts them down. And I don't feel that that's gonna happen. You know why? Because Dana White said that he talked to Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump most likely told him, like, you're not, if you move your event to a certain locations, you're not going to get shut down. And I was like, I guarantee you that's what Dana White is thinking. Like, if I move these events to these locations around the US, I could get a show done, and the government's not gonna come in and shut it down. I'm gonna do the shows there. And I think that's what's going through his mind. That's why he's scrambling to get the fighters. And there's a man, think about how big the US is and how many fighters are in the US. There will be no problem, I don't feel, to get fighters to come and compete. And especially for a UFC contract, it's like Contender Series. It's like Contender Series, but at a major show in the UFC. What's next week's show? UFC London. It's gonna be they moved it, so it's gonna be like UFC uh coronavirus or whatever you want to call it. And then they're gonna have it somewhere in probably like Wyoming or North Dakota or Montana or some shit. Some state that nobody ever goes to. Um what is it? Yeah, so they're not gonna have any problems to get fighters to come and compete. There's fucking fighters online on Twitter. Just go to Twitter. So many fighters are like, I'll fight, I'll fight, I'll fight, I'll fight, I'll fight. All these managers saying like almost everybody on their roster sent them a message saying like, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go compete for the UFC. So for like veterans, for like up and comers looking for a spot, a veteran that was like on their last leg, and it almost seemed like impossible for them to go back to the UFC. This is their chance to go back to the UFC, and they're not going to give that up. They're not going to let this coronavirus stop them. So UFC is not going to have a problem having shows and filling in matchups. You look at right now. Woodley was supposed to fight Leon Edwards. What's going on now? Leon Edwards has to drop out because he can't go to the States. Rafael Dos Anjos was willing to come in. You got Gilbert Burns. You got Kobe Covington. You got so many options, man. These guys are not afraid to fight. And 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 when you got all these people willing to fight and you're a promotion, you're gonna have a show. I'm guaranteeing that's what's running through Dana White's mind. He knows that the government's not gonna shut him down. And he knows there's so many fighters out there that would love to compete, that would risk it all to compete for the UFC. So it's like, if there was no fighters, if all the fighters would said, "Hey, we're not fighting," the UFC wouldn't have a show. They wouldn't. There's no show without fighters. You gotta think about that. Let's put this up here. Okay, so the UFC has a lot of smart people who must most likely can foresee potential lawsuits plus media nightmares if anything got infected. Why do you think they still go through with it? It's because of Dana White. That's why they still go through with it. Dana White and somebody else higher up the ladder are the people that are deciding these. They're the ones moving the pieces, deciding where everything goes and figuring out where they can go, where they can avoid lawsuits. And I'm guaranteeing you, people are signing something separate. When they get there, they're signing something separate, or even before they get there to fight, they're signing something separate, right? I'm guaranteeing that's happening. It's got to be, because that's the only way you can avoid a lawsuit. The media nightmare is a media nightmare, but the lawsuits, that's the problems, right? So I'm guaranteeing you, these fighters that are getting their new contracts for these new events coming up, they're signing something different, something extra, and And fighters don't care, man. They're gonna fight, so they'll sign the extra. They might even pay extra just to get that signature, to avoid those lawsuits. You know what I mean? Like, people that go on those TV shows, they have to sign something so they don't, they can't sue the show if something goes wrong. Same thing. Why wouldn't the UFC do that? They're a company. They're they're a privately owned company. You gotta protect yourself. All right. Yeah, it is easier to isolate a small country, that's right. It is easier. But at the same time, if you live in a big country and you're out in the countryside, or if you're in the mountains. I just saw something, Johnny Nunez, right? Johnny Nunez is Misha Tate's husband, I guess. They have kids together and they live in Singapore. But he was saying that if he was in the States, he would take his family to the mountains and stay out there as long as possible. And actually, that's a pretty good idea, man, is to isolate yourself in the mountains, because the country's so fucking big. You can go fishing, you can go camping, go hunting. And if you have the luxury of being able to do that, why wouldn't you not do that? And see what happens, because of course you're gonna have electricity, because you have a car, you have gas, you could charge your phones, and you could always keep updated with what's going on, but you'll be isolated far away from anybody, so you wouldn't be at risk. um yeah, UFC was trending on Twitter over the weekend. Yeah, they're majorly trending. If UFC gets into financial trouble, Lorenzo Fertitta can buy it back. Yeah, that is true. The Fertittas could buy it back, which would be like, in the history of business, right? That would just be the most insane thing, is you build this company that you bought for $2 million and you sell it for 6 billion. I don't know, did they sell it for 6 or 4 billion? Something like that, right? And then they sell it for six billion, let's say, and they buy it back for 3 billion. What the fuck, dude? Like, that, either that's fucking luck, or you're a smart motherfucker. And those Fertitta brothers are smart. So that I would like to see the UFC go back into the Fertitta's hands. And I'm guarantee a lot of fighters, a lot of UFC employees, a lot of people involved in the UFC would like to see that also. And hopefully maybe this year it could happen. Who knows? Um, What else is there? There are also an LFA event canceled the prior week. A lot of prospects ready. Yeah, yeah. Like I think I seen Joe Giannetti or whatever. Yeah, he seems like he's ready to go. Yeah, man, it's just that's how that's how that whole coronavirus thing is working, right? So now going back to the coronavirus or the you okay, so all this stuff's going on in Asia, right? And right. Do you think the UFC does an event this weekend? I feel like they're gonna do it. I think they're gonna do an event this weekend. I'm guarantee you by tomorrow, right? Or which is today, like Monday, right? The UFC is gonna announce everything. I guarantee you it's gonna happen. You're gonna see like Brett Okamoto, you know what I mean? He's like the UFC guy now, right? So Brett Okamoto or Errol Hawani, right? They're gonna announce something. Uh, what's gonna happen? Yeah. So, anyways, what else is there? Why do you think the UFC has so much criticism for continuing their closures? Oh, wait. Oh, that's all wrong. Anyways, all right. So now, so now I'm gonna move on to one championship, right? So what happened was, one championship. They once this coronavirus thing got out of hand, they canceled the Vietnam show, right? Because Vietnam was getting dangerous, so they canceled that. They delayed it. Then they waited a week or two, and the Jakarta card was coming up, right? Uh, and and it was just getting too serious, so they had an emergency meeting, and they decided, right, we're gonna cancel that Jakarta card. And that Jakarta card was supposed to be at the end of this uh, March. Was it March? No, beginning of April, right? I feel like it was supposed to be in the beginning of April, right? And and they canceled that, right? So because it's too dangerous. What is it? So they said, okay, we're gonna cancel these shows and a few more shows, and they also canceled the One Warrior Series shows in Singapore because it seems like they're gonna focus on just doing these 4 shows, which are on April 17th, April 24th, May 1st, and May 8th, right? Which is like back to back to back to back to back shows in Singapore. April 17th, they renamed it Hope. April 24th is named Strength. May 1st is Dreams, and May 8th is Inspiration. Um, yeah, it's kind of corny names, but you know, I guess in this time you need that, right? So that's they're a promotion. They're gonna promote stuff, so they're gonna use that, right? Now, the Jakarta card was supposed to be the Infinity One, right? The Infinity series, Infinity One, Two, and Three, right? So Jakarta card was supposed to be Infinity. It was supposed to be Demetrius Johnson versus uh, Adriano Moraes for the flyweight title, and Ong Song versus Vitali Big Dash for the middleweight title. Um, this would be the rubber match, basically, right? And all of that has been moved to May 29th, and Infinity One will be on May 29th in the Philippines, Manila, Mall of Asia. So what One Championship is doing is they're kind of like pushing everything because those Infinity cards need to be massive. So you cannot put one of these title fights on like one of these Singapore shows because they need Demetrius Johnson, they need Ong Law to be part of the Infinity cards. But I feel like they're gonna add like one more title fight to the Infinity One card, um, which most likely will be uh either Martin Nguyen. I feel like Martin Nguyen will be added to that card. It all depends on who he's going to fight. So there's talks about he gonna fight Tan Ton Lee, who's been on fire since he's been signed. He's gonna fight Gary Tonin. From what I heard, is that fight was in talks for a little bit. And or this is the dark horse, and I know Martin he's been talking about fighting this guy for a long time because he's wanted to uh fight all the ex champions, and this guy is the ex champion, but he hasn't fought him. Oh, actually, he did fight him. Oh yeah, he knocked him out. My bad. So there's only 2 options then. There's only Han Lee and Gary Tonin. Or maybe Martin goes to a different division and fights. But if he fights for the title, I feel like those are the two guys. Those are the main options, and that could happen on the Infinity One card on May 29th. Has not been announced, but it's not gonna. I don't think. I think that will be added soon. So you got Demetrius Johnson, Adriano Moraes. That's locked in. Angla Nasong, Vitaly Big Dash for the middleweight title locked in. There's a kickboxing light heavyweight kickboxing world championship fight. Roman Krakila versus Andre Stoica on May 29th, and I feel like one more title will be added to that, and I predict it will be Martin to win. Now, Infinity 2, okay, Infinity 2, the date for Infinity 2 has not been announced, but these are the matchups, right? You got Brandon Vera versus Arjun Buller for the heavyweight title. You got Christian Lee versus Yuri Lapicus for the lightweight title, and then you got Eddie Alvarez versus Doggy as a like a marquee lightweight fight, right? Which is a fight that's very interesting. Now, a big fight that a lot of people are talking about is Angela Lee versus Denise Zamboanga. Denise, blasted onto the scene. First fight, Gian Razuan takes her to the decision, wins the close fight. Second fight, dominant late notice fight against Mei Yamaguchi, dominates Mei Yamaguchi, and Mei Yamaguchi has not been dominated like that I ever in one championship. Not even by Angela Lee. All the Angela Lee fights were close, so they said, "Hey, you're gonna get the next title shot." Angela Lee confirms that in a recent interview. I feel she did with Leon from Asian Persuasion. Shout out to Leon. He talked with Angela Lee. They discussed it. They asked like, when will this happen? And they talked about the May 29th Infinity One card, but Angela Lee seems like she doesn't want to fight on the same card as her brother, which is smart. You know what I mean? Which is very smart. So I feel they're gonna add that title fight to the Infinity 2 card, with Brandon Vera and Chris. Oh wait. Oh wait. Let me go back on that. Angela Lee said that she doesn't want to fight on Infinity One card, so it must mean that Christian Lee is gonna fight on May 29th in Manila versus Lapicus. So maybe the Infinity 2 card. So maybe they shifted a couple things, right? So maybe the Infinity 2 card will have Martin, and it will have Angela Lee added to that. But I see like one more title fight added to both these cards. So it'll start to shuffle up, and when Chatri, like, he likes to announce everything, so we'll see what happens. But it's just gonna be interesting to see what kind of matches we're gonna get for these April 17th, April 24th, May 1st, and May 8th cards. Uh, yeah. So if you run through the champions, the MMA champions, right, that who don't have fights in one championship, Angela Lee, she has a fight, but it's not announced where it's going to be. Martin to win, he's in camp, but no fight has been announced. So it could be either Gary Tonin or Tan Lee. I don't know. It could be someone completely different. It could be a shocker. We have Bibiano Fernandez, who hasn't fought. He doesn't have no fights lined up. I feel like there's three guys he can fight. There's Shoko Sato, who is very experienced, who just won his fight against Kwon Wanir. Kwon Wanir was supposed to be a guy that they were trying to pump up. And Sato I think he's like the deep champion or the Shuto champion. And yeah, he's very experienced. I think that would be a good matchup. Or the big one is John Lineker. John Lineker versus Bibiano Fernandez. And then one more guy would be Lee Kai Wen. Lee Kai Wen recently dropped down to bantamweight, and he looks pretty good over there. So Bibiano has a few options, I feel like. Three options would be Sato, Lineker, or Lee Kai Wen. And then the dark horse by the end of the year would be the wrestler from Evolve Fight Team with Troy Warden. He's pretty decent. And then the other champ that doesn't have a fight is Jin Nang, right? The strawweight champion, the Chinese girl. And there's not many options in her division, right? There's not many girls in her division. Only two options that I see would be Tiffany Teal rematch, because Tiffany Teal has been on a tear since she lost her only fight to Jinan, or Michelle Nicolini. Um, I would like to see the Michelle Nicolini fight. I'd like to see how that would go down with the jiu-jitsu and stuff, but, uh, if I was gonna say who anybody has the advantage, it would be, Jin Nang. But, Tiffany Teo, she looks good, so we'll see what happens. Let's go back to the questions. Alright, let's see. Going back to the virus mostly just affects old people. So as long as you isolate young people from the old people, it should be fine. Just tell fighters not to interact with old people. That's true. That's true, right? But then there's some other studies about like other people are dying that are young, in certain age groups. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe online most of the time. Uh, saw on Twitter Woodley supposedly turned down Burns, and RDA is in talks. Yeah, I expected that. I expected him to turn down Burns. You know why? Because Burns is not that high up in the rankings. He just did beat Damian Maya. Uh, and he does he deserve a Tyron Woodley? I fucking think so. Why not? Because he did what Tyron Woodley could not do, which is knock out Damian Maya. And Burns knocked out Damian Maya in the first round fast. So, but yeah, Woodley, it's smart. Burns is not as a big name as a RDA. RDA is a former champ, two division champ, I think, right? So yeah, so I feel like RDA. But everybody wants to see that Kobe Covington fight. That's the fight that everybody wants to see. If I was in charge, if I had my way, I would have um I would have Woodley fight Covington and RDA fight Burns on the same night, main and co-main events. Why not? You could put anybody else on the prelims or whatever. It could be just regional guys, and if you just have those two fights on the next card, people watch. People watch, no doubt. People will be watching that. Let's look at this one. The Feds just cut interest rates down to zero, so UFC could just refinance and then they make the interest payment, especially when Dana has $300 million. Yeah, Dana's rich as fuck. Like, I don't think Dana's fucking worried about money. Like if the UFC folds, Dana could go to boxing. There's no doubt. He has enough money to open his own promotion. Him and the Fertitas could open up a new promotion and call it whatever the fuck they want now. Like they don't have to use that UFC name. So that's very interesting, man. Like all this money and the Fed's cutting interest rates and bank rates are dropping. And man, you guys need to be careful, man. Don't spend a lot of save your money, man. Don't go out and act crazy. Uh, just spend your money on what you need. Like me myself, I don't really spend much money, so it doesn't really matter. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, here we go. I heard Shinya Aoki say that ONE FC was in financial trouble last year, and with this year coronavirus, who do you think is in more financial trouble, UFC or ONE? Man, that's a difficult question. The reason why it's difficult is because I have no idea of their finances. So that's something I don't really focus on too much, right? I don't really worry about the finances of one championship or the UFC. You always hear like one championship, uh, like a lot of things don't match up, right? But they keep putting on shows, they keep putting out content, they keep signing fighters, and you never see fighters complaining about the pay. Like of course, in the beginning, fighters might have signed certain contracts that weren't like copacetic in their eyes. But like recently, like I talked to fighters, they get paid well by one championship, and it's never late or they never complain. It's just like from what I saw, or from what I hear, is like you fight, you win, your pay goes up. Every fight goes up. You lose, it stays the same. Like that's kind of like the philosophy they have. I don't know if they have like a, a show and win money system. I have no idea, but I feel like they just have like flat rate for the fighter pay, and it's good, man. For like a lot of these guys that are fighting for one championship, and if they went to the UFC, they wouldn't even get half of that. They wouldn't get half of what they're getting paid here. So, and most of the time, they wouldn't even be signed to the UFC. Because the guys that are new guys that are signed, they're getting 10 and 10, and guys that in one championship getting way more, and they probably are not even at the level of some of the guys in the UFC. And yeah, it's way better for the fighters getting paid like that. One champion, what is it? The UFC. I don't really think like they're in that big of financial trouble, man. They have backing. One championship, they also have backing too. So it's hard to say. Yeah, Shinya, he came out and said that one championship was having financial trouble, and then all of a sudden that article disappeared or that blog disappeared. So I don't know what to think about that. Shinya hasn't come out recently and said anything. So yeah, Shinya is a nutcase, man. Like a lot of people do not like Shinya at all. Like he says and does things that are not proper. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really fit with one championship, but Shinya and Chatri go way back. Go way back. Like in the beginning, Chatri used to corner Shinya in his fight. So, and that's not something I'm making up. I seen that with my own eyes. So you could go see it online. Go find it. One of Shinya's earlier fights in one championship. Anyways, this is when Chatri wasn't involved with one championship too much, not visibly. Next one. Do you think Colby has been in training? I don't see why he would step in on short notice when he is already a established name and a big fight with Woodley. Who do you think wins if they fight? Man, you can't underestimate Colby though, man. Like it's hard. Like I can't choose who wins this fight because you don't even know what Woodley is gonna come in with. He hasn't fought in so long. His last fight, just he just got fucked up in his last fight by Usman, right? But one thing you know about Woodley is every time after he loses, and I think he has 4 losses, right? After every loss, his next opponent he knocks out in the first round, every single one. So Woodley he comes uh back from a loss better than just as good as anybody can. He comes back firing, and first round he gets the knockout. Every single time he's lost, he's done that. Um, but Colby, right? He has that broken jaw that he's recovering from. Is it smart for him to take that fight? And I don't know if he would be ready. In many ways, in my eyes, I feel like Colby is just keeping his name in the headlines. I don't feel like he's really gonna fight Woodley. I don't think he's probably training, but I don't think he's gonna take this fight. I don't feel like he had any decision made in his mind like, "Oh, I'm taking this fight. I don't give a fuck." No, he's more strategic than that. He's not a guy that's gonna take a late notice fight. He's just talking shit. He's just keeping in the headlines. And one thing about Colby, he talks better shit than Woodley does. Woodley is just like a straightforward guy. If he starts talking shit, it kind of sounds weird. But Colby, he's this character. He has everything planned out, um, and it's funny, and he's taking stabs, and he's saying outrageous shit, and it's much better than what Woodley has to offer. So Colby will say shit that could be a headline, on a website, and Colby knows that. But Colby's not gonna fight Woodley, man. That's not even close. I guarantee you. I guarantee you, if they don't get the RDA deal done, then they're gonna go back to Gilbert Burns and get him to fight uh Woodley. And the worst case scenario, or not even worst case scenario, it's just another scenario is Woodley turns down both of them. Woodley doesn't even fight, and RDA fights Gilbert Burns in the main event. I'm telling you, that's a major possibility right there. Both those guys want to fight, and if Woodley turns them both down, why not? Why not get Burns to fight RDA? That's a decent main event, right? Both guys are in the top 10. Well, Gilbert Burns should be in the top 10. RDA's been in the top 10. And RDA just is coming off a weird loss to Michael Chiesa. So I'm pretty sure he wants to get out there and prove that he's still one of the best in the welterweight division. Let's go to the next one. Do you think UFC will cancel whole cards more often since there are a lot of travel bans and a lot of fighters from outside of America. How long do you think this situation will last? I don't think they're gonna cancel any cards, any whole cards. I feel like all the cards. I think the next, um, what is it? You got London. They're moving it to the U.S., right? Then you got Columbus. Then you got Portland. Then you got then you got UFC 249 with what is it? Ferguson and Habib. Those are all in the US. So I don't feel like they're going to cancel any of those. They're going to find a place in the US where they can go. Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, uh, Wyoming, someplace where the government's not going to fuck with them, and they're going to have shows there. And they're going to use, if you're going to fly from another country, if you're not already in the US, then they're not going to fly you in. They're going to just use fighters in the US. There's tons of fighters in the US, and they're going to match those fighters up. And if you're not signed yet to the UFC, they're going to find the best ones and sign the best ones and match them up and fill those cards up with, you know, eight fights, at the most, right? Eight fights, or at the least eight fights, 4 and 4, 4 prelims, 4, because you don't have to have 12 fight cards. You don't need 15 fights. You don't need that. You just have 8, 4 prelims, 4 4 made cards. It's not going to be that hard, man. It's not going to be that hard for them to do that. There's fighters willing to hop on a plane, hop on a bus, hop in their car, and especially in their car. If they could drive, like say like, oh, uh the show's in fucking, Wyoming. If you live in California, what, you hop in your car, pack all your shit up with your coaches, and drive to fucking Wyoming. I don't know. I feel like it's only like it's like a day drive probably, right? Why not? You get your crew together, drive one day, get to Wyoming, do your thing, right? And you get paid. They better put that hazard pay in there too, for everybody. But it's like the fighters will get paid, but the thing is the coaches. Is it should the coaches take that risk, because they're not going to get paid. They're going to get paid a little bit, but they're not going to be getting like the hazard pay and all that stuff. But I'm pretty sure they're going to have to sign something, some waiver, right? um the fighters are going to have to sign some waiver, whoever's even attending those shows, fighters, coaches, cornermen, training partners. They're going to have to sign waivers, man, to even be there. um I think that's what's gonna happen. Yeah, because the UFC has to protect themselves. And if they don't protect themselves, they're just idiots if they don't do that. And it's a shitty situation because you're putting people at risk, of course. But what can you do, man? Let's see. Let's see. Next one. Jiyoung Kim versus Alexa Grasso got confirmed. I think it's going to be a striking mainly fight. I'm worried that Alexa is going to be too fast since she's moving up to the weight class. Yeah, this fight might not even happen. Think about it. Jiyoung Kim is in Korea right now. Um, that one is in San Diego, right? So if all this stuff clears up by then, yes, Jiyoung Kim could probably fly in. But really, realistically, was she able to fly in from Korea and go directly to the event, wherever it's going to be? I don't feel like it's going to be in San Diego, most likely, right? Um, but if they do fight, I feel like Jiyoung Kim, she's a boxer, right? And she could stand and bang. And I don't think Alexa Grasso being the faster fighter is not going to really help her too much, because she's going to go after you, right? And she's going to, try to knock your head off. And I feel like this is going to be a fight that kind of, uh, it's more advantageous to Kim because she's just a bigger. Because Kim is coming down from bantamweight. Think about that. And Alexa Grasso is moving up from strawweight. So you saw what happened with that, right? With the last week or a couple days ago, with Makedo and Malecki, right? Just huge difference. So early, predictions for myself, I would think like Cheon Kim is a pretty heavy favorite going into that fight, and it's going to be a striking war. And even if it goes to the ground, I don't think Alexo Grasso's ground is like so much better than and Jian Kim's ground game. So I feel like Jian Kim will be able to stay out, any kind of traps or any kind of like dangerous exchanges on the ground. So if it goes back to their feet, I see Jian Kim doing the same thing to Alexa Grasso she did to Nadia Kassem in the last fight. It'll probably go the same way. And she hits hard. Jian Kim hits pretty hard. All right, let's go to the next one. News just came out. The U.S. just banned any public gathering of 50 people or more. It's over. Is it? Is that what they said? Because that's what they said in England, right? So is it U.S. every state is banning? Um, that's the question. Is it every state? Is it the whole country? You say U.S., right? So I'm thinking like it must be the whole country. A public gathering of 50 people or more. So I guess they need to have 50 people only at the shows. Think about it. 50 people only at the shows. So let's say you got 16 fighters. You got eight fights, right? 8 fights, 16 fighters, right? Then you got the staff. You got coaches. So you get one quarter man each. So 16 times 2, 32, right? And then you and then 32 minus 50 is what? 28? Is it 28 or 18? Well, 18, right? So now you have 18 people that are staff. Man, that's like scraping the barrel right there, man. It's kind of fucked. So maybe it's over, man. Maybe it is over. Maybe we talked about it for the last fucking 30 minutes for no fucking reason. Some bullshit. Anyways, all right, let's look at. Have you ever interviewed Korean UFC fighters like Korean Zombie, Stun Gun, Superboy, Kang Gyung-ho? I've been I've interviewed the Korean Zombie like with another person in the room. Stun Gun, no. Superboy, I could have, but I just skipped it. It was during the Busan card. Kang Gyung-ho, yeah, because it was during the Busan card. So the Busan card, he was there. It was all during the Busan card in last December. I was there in the room with all those guys. What why what do you want to know about those fighters? Like um next one. 50 people or more banned. Holy shit, that sucks. It does suck. Let's so Jian Kim's boxing is so slow comparing to Grasso. Yeah, but it's slow, uh but you gotta think is like when she lands, what's the impact of when she lands, right? So if she lands, it's gonna be more of an impact than Grasso landing, a bunch of extra strikes. And one thing about Jian Kim is she could take punches, so it's not like she's gonna like fade. She'll just get punched and move forward. Um, what is it? Will schools be affected by the ban? I'm pretty sure schools will be affected. I think schools are already shut down in many parts of the US. So I don't know, man. Like I don't live in the US, so I don't know. Like if you ask me questions about the US, like schools and stuff, I have no idea because I don't live there. So, uh, what is it? Do you think Kevin Lee taking a few years off is a good thing or bad? I think it's a good thing. I feel like he needs to go somewhere. Like maybe just stay at TriStar, just train and kind of just train. That's it. Just train and live his life. Just train and live his life with no fight, and just develop and develop and develop and I think that would be good for him because he's still young, man. He's a very young fighter. So, and he's been through so much as a young fighter already. So if he takes off like 2 years, and 2 years is nothing. Look at Dominic Cruz. He's taken off 2 years here and there. So it's really he could come back from there. So, um, what is it? Yeah, Kevin Lee. If he takes a few years off, I think that'd be good. I think that's a good idea. It wouldn't be that bad. Um, let's see. Because also Kevin Lee, it seems like his his heart is not in it, and he feels like mentally it's not in it, right? So he needs to get his head right, and I think working for us or even going to Thailand and just isolating himself in Thailand for 2 years and working on his striking, and because his wrestling is tight and his striking looks good, but I feel like if he tweaks his striking a little bit and and then stay sharp with the wrestling, and work on his mind and get his mind right, he'll come back and be a crazy force in that division, right? Uh, Also, another one. Also, did you see what Masvidal said to Kevin? Yeah, I don't understand why Masvidal is going at Kevin Lee. Did they have beef before? I don't understand. Like, why would Masvidal say shit like that? So, um, I have no idea, man. Like, I seen what Masvidal said. He said some shit about like, you tapped and you wanted to fight after you tapped and shit. Well, maybe he was out and he just woke up and that's his natural reaction. But he's also trying to stay in the hot, in the headlines too now. He doesn't have a fight and it seems like him and Colby, maybe they're friends again. I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of weird what Masvidal said about Kevin Lee. It's kind of fucked up because like you're kicking the man while he's down and you're a fighter. You know what I mean? Come on. Uh, Next question. What do you think happened to Korean Superboy career? Why has it gone downhill? The reason why his career has gone downhill is because he doesn't improve his skill set. He's using the same shit. He's fighting the same way every fight. If you haven't noticed, like once you start fighting the same way every fight, people are going to start to figure you out. And when that Canadian kid came in, it was almost like they kind of fed him to the Korean Superboy, like, hey, we're gonna give you this kid, and you're gonna fight in Busan, which is the place where you train out of. This should be a showcase for you. And what happened? He fight the same way. So of course the opponent's coaches are like, hey, this guy's gonna do this, and you're gonna counter with this, and this is what's gonna happen. That's what happened. So what can you do, man? Like he needs to change something. He needs to change. Uh, I don't know, man. It's just he needs changes in his career if he doesn't. And plus, he's got to go to the military too, so he's gonna be gone for a couple years. Maybe that would be something good for him. It's like Kevin Lee, he's going to the Korean military for a couple years and come back. That's what happened to the zombie, right? He left for 3 years, came back, and he's good as ever. So we'll see what happens with the Korean Superboy. But Superboy needs to go to the military. Um, Yeah. Anyways, yeah, he's just the same. Like I talked about it in the Busan. I was doing some kind of preview show with somebody, and I was telling them the same thing. It's like if Korean Superboy comes out the same way, he doesn't change anything in his style. He doesn't add anything to his style. Um, he's gonna get fucked up. And guess what happened? He got fucked up. But this is what I heard about the Superboy, that leading up to that fight, he had a gang of injuries, and he had to fight because financially he hadn't fought in a long time and he was in debt and he had to fight. He could not skip that. And from what I heard is like his people in his team were telling him like, don't fight, man. You're too injured. Like he had like something wrong with his knees. Yeah, some big injury he had going into that fight. But he said he needed the money, so you know, what can you do? Next one. All right. Who should Xiaonan Yan fight next? Same with Amanda Ribas. Who would you like to say is next? First Amanda Ribas, man, I think she should fight either Angela Lee or Felice Herrick. When Felice Herrick, if she's ready to come back, I feel like Felice Herrick is ranked, even though she probably shouldn't be, which is good for Amanda Ribas. It's like that Alex Volkanovski versus Chad Mendes situation. Chad Mendes was gone for a while and he was ranked, but he shouldn't be, but it's a decent name. So what did Volkanovski do? He called out Mendes, fought Mendes, TKO'd Mendes. And I think Hibas, same thing. She should be calling out Felice Herrick because she's ready to come back. Why not take advantage of that situation and that position in the rankings? Angela Hill would be a good matchup too. Both those are coming up. Both them are coming up in the division. Why not? Jan, man, who can Jan fight? Like, let me see the rankings real fast. 'Cause Jan is a dangerous fight for a lot of people, right? And the one thing about Jan is that I feel like a lot of the girls in the division don't want to fight her. So it's kind of like getting into that same position as Zhang Weili of like she's just gonna yeah, like let's look at the rankings. You got Jessica Andrade at number one, Rose Namajunas. They're fighting each other. Tatiana Suarez, who should probably get the next title shot, but um is not going to because something she's still injured. Her neck is fucked up. Um, so that's what Dana White was saying. So like you're not gonna see that fight. And actually, if she wasn't gonna get the next title shot, I would think like Jan would be a good fight for her. Even though Jan is ranked number 11, I feel like Soares would be good, but Soares would have got the title shot if she wasn't injured. Joanna's number 4. She's not gonna fight for a while, but Joanna would be a good fight, right? But I don't think she's gonna want to return against Jan. Nina Ansarov's not gonna fight. She's ranked 5th. I think she's pregnant. Claudia Gadelha, she's fighting Marina Rodriguez, who's ranked number 9. Carla Esparza's fighting Michelle Watterson, who both are 7 and 8. Cynthia Calvillo's number 10, but she's fighting at flyweight versus Antonina Shevchenko. So it doesn't leave nobody there, man. It's almost like you could argue that she fights Zhang Weili, man, because everybody's locked up, and then the only person that should fight for the title is Tatiana Suarez, but she's injured and no one knows when she's coming back. So yeah, it's like it's a weird situation for her. That would be crazy if they actually push that fight. Jan versus Zhang Weili for the title. But I don't think that's gonna happen anyways. Next one. Do you foresee a future where in Korea Korean fighters are worshipped more than Korean pop? No, that shit is never going to happen. That will never Korean fighters, man. Korea is not a fighting country, man. Like Philippines, that's a fighting country. Like they love their fighters, right? They have like these iconic fighters. They love fighting, right? They love sports. Okay, they love it. Korea is not really like a major sports country. Of course, you have famous athletes coming out of Korea from many different sports, but they're just like Korea's fans are like bandwagon fans. They just bandwagon off whoever's the most popular. Like let me give you an example. Remember Heinz Ward? Heinz Ward is half Korean and half black, and you remember the Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers? He won the MVP. Like they brought him over. He'd never been to Korea in his life. Like nobody even know who fucking Heinz Ward is. Once he got the MVP and the Super Bowl, they brought him over to Korea, and he was on like all these like major TV shows. Doesn't speak a lick of Korean, but just because he's half Korean, they brought him over, and that's what Korean fans are like, or Korean people are like. They're just bandwagons, man, and the sport is not gonna be that huge in Korea unless maybe somebody becomes a champion but man, there's been so many promotions that have come and gone, and yeah, but the sport is getting bigger, but it's not gonna be like K-pop big. Come on, man. I think that you just fucking around right there. Let's see. Am I crazy for preferring no crowd? It feels like pride, and it seems more cool since you can hear every hit. Yeah, I don't mind the no crowd. It's like going to a local show. It's like going to a local show. Like if you go to a local show, it's not that loud there. There's like maybe a like 100 people or something, which is it's pretty quiet. And yeah, it's like Pride Days. So having no crowd, preferring it, I don't really prefer it, but it's cool to have. It's cool to like be able to hear everything. But it's weird when the fighter wins and then there's nobody there to like cheer them on. That's weird, right? There's nobody there to cheer them on, which is it's awkward. Like when Gilbert Burns knocked out Damian Maia and he got up and he's all like screaming and yelling, there's nobody there. So it's kind of like anticlimactic, right? Think about it. Did you see the One Warrior Series April live show got pushed back? Yeah, I think got pushed back to like let's see. It got pushed back to June 11th, right? Yeah, that's what it says. June 11th. So, you figure that would you figured that would happen. Um, uh, why? Because those 4 shows that they pushed, in April and May, end of April, beginning of May, those 4 shows, they're gonna focus mostly on that. So One Warrior Series gets put in the back burners, and then in June, we'll get to see those. Because there's a lot of good fights coming up on that, One Warrior Series. There's a lot of fighters on that card that actually should be fighting for one championship, the big show. Like, there's some divisions that need more fighters, and that One Warrior Series card has like a bunch of fighters that should be actually on the big show. So hopefully after this One Warrior Series, some of those fighters will be fighting on the main cards or the big shows of one championship, because man, fucking um some of those divisions are fucking weak, weak. Especially women's strawweight is weak. It's just in like it's thin, right? They need to start pumping in the women's strawweights because that champion is sitting there all alone by herself. Um, Let me see. Yeah, WMMA scene now. What's going on, man? What's going on, Chuck? Chuck Stevens. Chuck Stevens, right? I feel like that's your name. But anyways, yes. Uh, yeah, Heinz Ward, he did go to Korea and his mom met the president, which is fucking insane, right? Like Heinz Ward is half Korean. Like nobody even knows who the fuck he is, but it's because he won the Super Bowl MVP. They brought him over to Korea, bandwagon like a motherfucker. Uh, what is this? Why Don? Oh, here. Why don't we see more Thai fighters in the UFC, considering they are such great stand-up fighters? The reason why we don't see more Thai fighters is because one championship gobbles them all up mostly, right? If you think about it, look at one championship, they have all the Thai fighters, and plus they're not as developed, right? Their striking is not as developed toward the MMA style, and it's going to take a couple of years to get more and more fighters to develop into that style, but they're there. I've seen a lot of the Thai fighters, and there's Thai wrestlers too that fight, and yeah, they're developing. So in the next like 5 years or so, you're gonna see a bunch of Thai fighters fighting in the UFC. But most of the time, one championship gets in there, snatches them up early, and that's why you don't see it. And the reason why you see Loma fighting in the UFC is because from the beginning, she was groomed to go to the UFC. Like that's what happened. She was groomed like from the beginning when she started training at Tiger Muay Thai. Their goal was for her to go to UFC, not to win championship. So you'll see more. It's gonna happen. Let's see. It's always hard to find out the card for One Warrior Series until the week of the fights. Yeah, it is. But that's how they want to do it. So what can we do? You know what I mean? There's nothing. Uh, yeah, Stevenson. Yeah, Chuck Stevenson, right? Shout out to Chuck, doing some work out there for the women's MMA. Let's see, next one. Did you see more how McConnell acted after he got the sub win? Also, did you think Oliveira calling out the winner of Khabib Tony was a good idea, or was he crazy and is likely to happen? Okay, so let's start with Morcano first. When he got up and acted like that after he won via submission, I thought that they had some kind of beef or something like beforehand, but I guess he was just disappointed in the situation that he was fighting in Brazil and nobody was there to like experience it with him, right? Like his people, his family, or whatever. And also, he felt like the fight should have went longer. He was angry that Demir didn't last longer in the fight, which is kind of hilarious, right? But anyways, Marcano looked phenomenal at lightweight, and hopefully he continues at lightweight. And I think he called out Paul Felder, but I doubt he's going to get that fight. He's going to get somebody else outside of the top 15. A lot of people felt like he wasn't even supposed to be in the top 15 at featherweight. So yeah. Let's see. The next question is Oliveira calling out the winner of Khabib Tony. Was that a good idea? Calling out people is always a good idea. Always a good idea. But calling out the right person, the logical person that you can fight next, that's a good idea or a better idea. Was he crazy for doing it? No, it's not crazy. But was it the logical choice? Was it something that is feasible for him for his next fight, no, that's not gonna happen. There's way more guys ahead of him. He should have been calling out, you know, uh, a he should have been calling out maybe, what is his name? Paul Felder, someone that smashed him a few fights ago. Or, who else is there? Let me see the rankings. Because Oliveira's on a tear, 7 fights, 7 submissions in a row. That's fucking insane. Okay, so let's see. Okay. He should have been calling out, like a Justin Gaethje, right? Justin Gaethje doesn't. He should call out Justin Gaethje. Uh, he should be calling out like Donald Cerrone, right? Al Quinta. Those are good fights right there. I think those are some fights that are bigger names than him, and if he beats them, gives him more notoriety. You can't just go for the title. Like, they're not gonna give you Khabib and Tony. There's guys like Justin Gaethje's in there, right, waiting for him, and so you call out the guy that's waiting for the next shot, right, or you call out a guy that's kind of near where you're at, but with a bigger name, and fight him stateside and beat them, and then that will give you more push. 8 in a row, come on, he's like becoming the Tony Ferguson of the lightweight division right now, which is fucking insane. Who would have expected this to happen? You know? Um, but anyways, yeah. So, calling out people always good. It's never good to just be like, "Oh, I'll fight anybody the UFC wants me to fight." Come on, if you're in a position to call people out, call motherfuckers out. Call them, like, but don't call out ridiculous shit. Like, call someone out feasible. Like, Dan Hooker is like one of the guys that are like strategically, he knows what he's doing. Like, he calls out the right people at the right time at the right moment. And look where he's at right now. He's gonna get a main event against Dustin Poirier. Second straight main event of his career. Big fights right there. Uh, in the world where all sports events got canceled, I'm actually the UFC continue and gave us something to look forward to, some formality in this chaos. Yeah, it's good, right? It's good to have the UFC trying to do something. I know that they're getting a lot of criticism and a lot of hate, and people are saying they're putting lives at risk, and that's definitely true. But if you're selfish, if you're thinking about just sitting at home and watching something, yeah, if you look at it from that viewpoint, it is good that the UFC is trying to show that this virus is not gonna keep you down, and you're gonna push forward and do your best. The UFC is kind of being an inspiration in that way, but a lot of people are not liking it too much. So let's see what happens. I think UFC might try snatching up more Thai fighters since Israel Adesanya was a kickboxer and he's doing well now. So they might double down on their efforts for well-known strikers. But the thing is, all the well-known strikers are signed to one championship, and the difference between Israel and like a lot of the Thai guys, of course, the Thai guys, some of them are probably working on their ground, but Israel Adesanya has been working on his ground for the last, I don't know how many years. The whole time he was kickboxing, he was still wrestling, he was still doing jiu-jitsu. So like him being labeled as just a kickboxer is kind of, it's not kind of, it is, it's mislabeling him, yes, he was in the kickboxing world and he was dominating and doing well over there, and he would dabble in MMA, but the whole time he was in the training room working on his wrestling, working on his jiu-jitsu, working on every aspect of the game. So when he did go to the UFC, he explains it in his interviews. When he did go to the UFC, he would be ready, and he already had the 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 game, this the, what is it, the spit. He could spit, he could freestyle, right? He knows how to talk, so he already had that the whole time. It's just not something that he developed recently. So yeah, it's just Israel is a different breed compared to like a lot of the Thai fighters. A lot of Thai fighters, they don't know how to speak English, man. Uh, that being able to speak English is a huge tool, right? And if you could do that and bring a country that's not a English speaking country with you, that's major, man. Like, if you can do that, that's major. Why do you think all the major stars ever in the UFC are all English speakers? There's a reason why. Connor, Israel, all these guys. You know, skill wise, there's guys that have come in and become popular that never really spoke English. You know, like with that, like a Anderson Silva. But then you got the GSP. You know, it's just a combination. You like Anderson Silva was great. You know, like for me, like when he was fighting and going through his run, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life as a fan of the sport, as a spectator. You know, watching a fighter just do the things that he did, but reaching stardom, reaching like next level fame and money and everything, GSP was the first one, right? GSP, because he spoke English, he knows how to talk to the people, right? And he didn't have to talk shit to do it. So it's totally different from McGregor and what's his name, Israel. How has COVID-19 affect gyms in Korea? A lot of gyms in US are either closing or people were still working out the whole time. Like some gyms would close, but then they would have like the fighters would have like closed practices. Okay. So like some jujitsu gyms would close, a lot of jujitsu gyms would close, a lot of regular gyms would close, and then the fighters, you know, without having like the members or whatever come in, the fighters would just have practices on their own, and then they would like spray the gyms with disinfectant and you know before and after, and that's what they were doing, and you don't have any cases in Korea from like any gyms or anything. It's always churches. All the infections are from churches or hospitals, and it's usually from that city. So yeah, it didn't really affect the gyms too much. I feel like the gyms they shut down for like a week for just the members, but for fighters and athletes, they were already going to the gym every day training. It didn't affect them at all. Let's see. Why do you think more fighters at one gave effort into learning English, but fighters in the UFC? More fighters at one, they're giving effort into learning English? I don't really see that, to be honest with you. Do they put more effort into fight? I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the ones that speak English are the ones that speak English because a lot of countries speak English, like Singapore, they're English speaking country. Malaysia, they're English speaking country, right? Um, and and certain fighters they just grew up, you know, with the privilege of being able to learn English, so they know how to speak. I don't think they're putting more effort into it. Philippines, like there, a lot of the language is English, so they speak English. Yeah, so Hong Kong English. So because you don't see like the Chinese fighters speaking English, but like what Chinese fighters speaks English? None of them. Bali, a lot of the fighters that are from Bali, they're from like the States or they're from Australia, so they're English speakers. I wish we could have gotten Yoel Romero when he was 17, 30 years old. The way he moves like no one else. No coaches can teach fighters to move the way Yoel does. Yeah, man, but you know what can we do? Um, Yoel's fucking he's not 27, he's 72. So can't do nothing about that, you know. It would have been exciting to see Yoel. He'd probably be a massive threat, but you never know, man. You never know. Maybe at 27, 30, his mind would have been right and he would have got crushed by a lot of the guys. Uh, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what to say about Yoel. He's just, he has been disappointing to me, like, in many, many different ways. Just as a fighter, just disappointing. So that's all I can really say. Do you think the UFC will eventually allow knees to the ground and possible stabs since once FC allows knees? Too brutal compared to I don't think the UFC is gonna they're not in charge of like making the rules. So I don't feel like they'll change those rules anytime soon. Knees to the ground, grounded opponent. Yes, I love those. I think they should be in the rule set of any promotion, but these commissions, these commissions are not allowing that, right? They're kind of like set in their ways. Because you gotta think these commissions are fight like these old fucks, you know, like 80s, 60s, 50s or whatever that 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 they don't like change and everything takes so fucking long to do, you know, any kind of anything proactive. It takes too fucking long. So it's just a bunch of bullshit, right? So it's not going to happen. And they're not going to compare it to one FC. So they're not going to say like, "Oh, one FC is doing it, how come you're not doing it?" They don't care about that. Like how Curtis Blades beat Overeem with elbows on the ground. Yes, exactly right. Exactly. Um, have you seen the new Do It Multi Gym, Road FC gym in Krumzan? Can't believe a gym that nice. It's a small city. Wish it was there when I was stationed there. No, I've never even been to Krumzan, to be honest with you. So I don't know. I haven't seen that gym. You know why the gym is so nice? Because it is in a small city, so everything's cheaper. The rent's cheaper, and that's the major key is the rent. If the rent's really cheap, then you can make the gym much bigger. In Seoul, it's just the rent's just too high, so you can only limit so much space. Next one. Same with Brock Lesnar, right? Brock Lesnar. Exactly. Brock Lesnar was like 31, 32 and started off late. Yeah, if Brock was younger, he would have smashed, right? Yoel, Brock. There's so many guys like that started late. Even like what is his name? Randy Couture, right? What if Randy Couture was younger when he started? Maybe he would have won like fucking three titles, three different weight divisions. Who the fuck knows, right? The flyweight division UFC has struggled for years to gain any attention. Is the flyweight at one doing any better? Yeah, man. The flyweight division at one championship is what is it? Is really good, man. So there's a lot of fighters there. But the thing is, it all depends, man. It's like, are you paying attention or not? Who's paying attention to the flyweight division in one or in the UFC? Uh, they get main events. Like one. It's not like there's that much attention on them to where everybody's like criticizing, like, why is this fight on the prelims? Why is this fight the fourth fight of the night? It should be the co-main event or whatever. I don't think that people are criticizing them like that, like they do with the UFC. So, but they do have a deep flyweight roster, and it's gonna be a fun time because they got a bunch of Japanese guys at flyweight that are really high level. They got a bunch of Filipino guys. They got, of course, the Brazilians. You got the champ, Moraes. You got Demetrius Johnson. You got Kairat Akhmedov still, floating around. There's a bunch of guys, man. Reese McLaren's there from Australia. Bunch of guys. It's fun to watch. They have like a stacked 15 to 20 guys in the flyweight division. And that's why Demetrius Johnson's going to have a lot of fights ahead of him. If he becomes a champ, they're going to have. And one thing about one championship, it's not like, oh, you don't like, they'll give a title shot to somebody that has a decent win streak and and there's always going to be someone to fight. Okay, there's always going to be someone to fight for the title. If Demetrius Johnson wins, I feel like if he wins, they're going to keep him busy. Uh, who's this guy? Just dabbed some fire wax. Good for you, buddy. Brock shouldn't have been allowed to fight in UFC. He got his body off steroids. Well, there's a lot of guys that got their body off steroids. So, what can you do? What can you do? Uh, who do you think wins out of Darren Till and Robert Whitaker? And if Till wins, does he get a title shot? But what if Rob wins? What happens to him? Okay, so who do I think wins versus Darren Till and Robert Whitaker? Man, that's a hard fight to pick, man. But if I was gonna give you a favorite, I would say Robert Whitaker, just because he's been through uh those 5 rounders with Yoel Romero, and his resume is just deeper and longer than Darren Till. But one thing about Darren Till is that he got over that loss against Masvidal with that win against Gastelum, and that win against Gastelum was not a very good win, close fight, and I feel like that kind of boosted his confidence, just getting that win, just getting out there and competing and getting the win, to where now he's gonna go in there against Robert Whitaker as himself and has without a weight cut. So he's gonna be probably he's gonna come out probably very vicious in this fight. If he wins, does he get a title shot? I think he could. I think he could. I think if Till wins, he could get a title shot. If Robert Whitaker wins, he probably won't get a title shot. I feel like Till wins that because it seems like the UFC likes Darren Till. Darren Till represents uh, the UK. and I could see him getting it. And they've been going back and forth a little bit, him and Israel. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be tougher for Robert Whitaker to get a title shot compared to Darren Till. I think Robert Whitaker will have to beat Darren Till, and then he'd have to go and beat one more guy, and then they would give him a title shot. I think Till, if it works out right, he could get a title shot if he beats Robert Whitaker. You got Jared Cannonier floating around, and you got Paulo Costa, right? But who knows, man? Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen with Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya, and then after that, if Cannonier's next, if Tillwin is he next, that division is like shaking out to be pretty exciting, but it always been exciting, right? And then you got Robert, what is his name, Jack Hermanson and Chris Weidman fighting soon, and I would like to see Chris Weidman come back and go after that title too, because I feel like he poses some interesting matchups with a lot of these guys. I would like to see him fight Robert Whitaker. I would like to see him fight, uh, what is it, Paulo Costa. There's a lot of good fights there for all those guys. Very exciting time for the middleweight division. Which walkout entrance do you prefer, one or UFC? Personally, one walkout entrance is weird and cringe to me. Um, I don't really prefer any of those. I don't really care for like walkouts, to be honest with you. It's walkout's a walkout. If I preferred one, I prefer Rizin's walkouts. I feel like there's the best. It's it has a little bit of flair, but then it's straightforward where it's just like they if they want to do something, they do something. If they don't want to do it, they just use the regular stock walkouts and they go down that ramp. I like that straight ramp. Walk down that straight ramp. It's pretty good. But Ryzen is the best, I feel. Ryzen has the best walkouts. The production for Ryzen is just fucking insane, man. Like I went there live. I've been to UFC live. I've been to uh Ryzen live, and but I've never been to one championship live, so I can't really speak on that. Maybe it's better. I don't know. Maybe one championship is better, but I don't really care about walkouts too much. It doesn't really matter to me. Um, what is it? Let me get it on Twitter real fast and tweet this out. And I'm gonna do like 30 more minutes at the most. So let me know some question. And let me know anything, just like questions or answers, or maybe let's see what we got here. Was Johnny Walker pushed too fast? I think UFC should have built him slowly, like they did with Charles Oliveira and Alex Volkanovski and Khabib. Um, I don't feel like Johnny Walker was pushed too fast. I don't think so. Um, I don't think any fighter is pushed too fast. I feel like if you're a fighter and you have hype and you have ability, you have skills, and you have confidence in your skills, and then you gotta take those opportunities, man, of taking the big fights when you can, because you never know. Because there's certain fighters that they build up, and then they say, "Oh, we're gonna give you this fight," and it's like a guy that's a mid tier guy, but it's a terrible matchup for you. But they're like, "We're gonna build you up." It's a terrible matchup for you, or maybe it's a good matchup for you, but you go in there and you fucking shit the bed and you lose to that guy. Is it better to lose to a mid-tier guy, or is it better to lose to a guy in the top 15? You got to think of it like that too. You know, I feel Johnny Walker, he has this of the abilities, but he should have kind of maybe took a little bit more time between fights to develop himself. But pushing too fast, I don't think so. And I feel like Johnny Walker, he's only 27 years old, and it's only it's two losses in a row. So he could come back. I mean, he could come back. He has the right coach. Uh, he could do it. Charles Oliveira, man, he's been around for so long. He's lost to a lot of guys too. You gotta think. So I don't think they built him slowly. Volkanovski, um, one thing about Volkanovski, he wanted to fight anybody that's gonna move him up. So if they would have gave him like Jose Aldo on his third or second fight, he would have took Jose Aldo on his third or second fight. So we don't know how he would have done against them, but he would have took them in those fights. So it's hard to say. Habib, did they build Habib up? I don't know. I don't know really. Did they? Maybe. I don't know. Well, I think like Habib probably would have beat a lot of guys anyways. They didn't need to build him up. And they remember that fight he lost with against Tebow. Remember that? Imagine if he would have lost that fight. What would have happened to him? His record wouldn't be undefeated anymore. Let's see. Do you think the Habib and Tony fight is really cursed? I mean, the MMA gods threw a global pandemic at it just to make sure it doesn't happen. Yeah, it must be cursed, man. If it doesn't happen this time, um, should we even put it together? I think they're gonna. I think the UFC will put it together as many times as possible, even if it's not for the title, and they'll just keep going until it happens. So, um, yeah, man, I think it's gonna happen, but maybe it might not happen this time, but it's gonna eventually happen. Maybe they're gonna be like really old or something, and they're gonna no one there's no belt on the line or nothing like that, or maybe they're gonna fight in a parking lot at Walmart or something. Who gives a fuck? All right, next one. I guess you're right since Israel got title inside of 2 years. But it's crazy to think people wanted Johnny Walker to get a title shot 6 months ago. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, he shouldn't have got a title shot. You shouldn't even be talking about a title shot 6 months ago. Well, that's I don't know if that's the media or if that's the fans or who's talking. Is that Johnny Walker talking about it? He said that he wants to fight John Jones eventually because I interviewed Johnny Walker before, and he said he wants to fight John Jones eventually, but he didn't say like he wanted to do it right away. You know what I mean? Like, of course he's gonna say he's ready. Of course he's gonna say he's ready, but you know, saying that you're ready and actually being ready to fight somebody for the title is two different things. And I think a lot of fans they drank the Kool-Aid too fast on Johnny Walker. But he's gonna be back, man. Don't worry about Johnny Walker. He just needs to get his head right. That's one thing about fighters, man. It's like a lot of it is it has to do with like the mental side, and having the right people around you, and and having them tell you the right things and teaching you the right things and guiding you the right way, uh, and telling you things that you don't want to hear, right? You can't have a bunch of yes men around you. So maybe Johnny needs to kind of filter out the people around him and see what happens. But he does have a good management. He's under Paradigm, which is Israel Adesanya and what's his name, Conor McGregor. So we'll see what happens with Johnny Walker. Let's see what's next. If Tony wins, will UFC try to make Tony versus Conor or Tony versus Gaethje or Habib rematch? Man, that's a fucking good question. Uh, Tony wins. I feel like if Tony wins, they're gonna make the Habib rematch. I feel like that would be the fight to make. I just feel like Gaethje's gonna get fucked. He's gonna get fucked over in this situation somehow. Because I don't think Conor is gonna fight Gaethje. Conor, it seems like he's waiting. Conor is waiting for the winner of Tony versus Habib, and I feel like Conor, he's rooting for Tony to win because Conor hasn't fought Tony, and if he does fight Tony, then it would be for the title. He already tasted Habib, and stylistically, Habib is just a complete nightmare for Conor. We saw it, you know what I mean? I feel like Habib played with Conor in that fight. And you know how it like lasted as long as it did? I felt if Conor wanted to go, if Habib wanted to go in there and take him out in the first or second round, I think it would have happened that way. But he just played with him. Um, and it's just like if you look at the Dustin fight, I feel like Habib went in there and fought, respected Dustin and fought him to put him out as quickly as possible, not to just prolong the beatdown or whatever. Um, yeah, so if Tony wins, I think the UFC does the Tony Habib rematch, but I feel Connor's gonna slide in there somehow and kind of negotiate a fight with Tony, which would be complete bullshit because Connor just won a fight at welterweight, and the last few fights at lightweight he's lost, or is it a few fights? Or the last fight at lightweight, and that was like years ago. Tony versus Habib in Bellator 2032. Yes, that's probably the prediction. You probably want to write that down. That's probably something that will most likely happen because of the global situation right now with all these people. Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Oh, is it? Is it 4 p.m. UK time right now? Where is it? What happened to Taon Jung? When is he fighting? Taon Jung has been announced to fight uh, Ed Herman in Oklahoma City, I think. UFC Oklahoma City. It's been announced. It was announced like last week or 2 weeks ago. So he's going to be fighting him. He's actually one of the prospects I feel coming out of Korea. He's had 2 fights. Both fights he's finished both opponents, one by submission and one by knockout. And I've been privileged to be at both of those fights. The first one he debuted in China at UFC Shenzhen, and he submitted some Russian guy. And then his second fight was in Busan, and he knocked out Rodriguez uh, in that fight. Yeah, a very nice guy, man. One of the nicest guys you're gonna meet out there. Some guy. He's a guy that you've like. I've been around since he was like a young guy coming up. He's still a young guy, but saying like in the like regional scene, like coming up, where he wasn't even the fighter that he is right now. Like I've seen the development throughout the years of his skill set and him just developing into this like UFC like caliber fighter. But yeah, but he hasn't changed. He's been the same the whole time. Like his attitude, his mannerisms, everything is just he's just a nice guy, and yeah, it's been like that the whole time. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like where he can go with in the light heavyweight division because he's the first ever Korean fighter to fight in the light heavyweight division. All right, let's talk about this. Who do you feel is next breakout female fighter from Korea? I think Soyu Kim shows a lot of promise, but Jian So is already growing in popularity. Um, Soyu Kim, she shows a lot of promise, but um, I don't know. I'm still skeptical about her and her ground game, but she's still young. She's like in her fights, she's fought opponents that are not up to her caliber. So and she still beat them, but she still was very sloppy. And that's one thing I noticed about her. She's very still sloppy. But one thing good, she's still young, she can develop, and she can yeah, she shows promise against fighters that are not as good as her. So we'll see what happens with her. Cheon So. I don't know what's she's growing in popularity, but I don't even think she's training anymore. I don't even think she's fighting anymore, to be honest with you. Because from what I heard around, the streets of Korea is like she's had some problems outside of fighting or something like that. So you don't really see her. Like she doesn't. If you go on her social media, she doesn't go on there. She doesn't do anything on there anymore. And she gained all that popularity through being cousins with somebody that's famous, which is weird. Um, and then that blew up her social media. But if I was gonna pick one of those fighters that has more promise, I would think that it would be Cheon-seo or Seojeon. I feel like she has the most promise, and she's even younger than Kim So-yoon. But we'll see what happens. Kim So-yoon, she's still training with MOB. Seojeon, I don't know what's going on with her, man. It's kind of a weird situation. There's some weird stuff going on with her. Um, I don't want to speak on it because uh because it's like kind of like personal shit for her. So, but when I can speak on it, I'll let you guys know. Um, do you remember the UFC fighter, Korean fighter, Bang something, who got busted for fight? Of course, I remember him and losing on purpose, but he didn't lose. That's what's funny. Like he was supposed to lose on purpose, but he didn't lose. He won the fight. What happened to that guy and to his gym? Well, what happened to that guy? I think he went to jail for a while. He got out. He was training again, and I think he was with Team Macho. And Team Macho is like Yang Dongyi, UFC former UFC middleweight, and then Im Hyung-gyu, the Ace, former UFC welterweight. He was training over there at that gym, and he was supposed to fight for M1 Global. M1 Global was supposed to have a show in Korea, and then when that coronavirus thing blew up, right at the beginning of that, M1 Global was gonna have a show in Korea, and Bang was supposed to be on that card, but they canceled that show, so he lost that opportunity to fight. He used to be part of Korean Top Team, but they kicked him out because of that, or I think, or he left, or something happened. But I don't think if you're if you're busted for fight fixing, I don't think your gym is gonna keep you around unless your gym was involved in the fight fixing, which I doubt that that's what happened. But yeah, a lot of people are still, they're still kind of angry about that. You know what I mean? But one thing about the UFC is like they swept that under the carpet. Like nobody really like talked about it too much. But he did go to jail. But the funny thing about that story is like after the fights, okay, so what happened was like the line was shifting on his fight, right? It shifted too quickly, and it caught the attention of some people, right? So from what I heard is like the people that uh that bribed him to lose, they bet like a crazy amount of money, right, for him to lose. So that's what shifted the line in Las Vegas or whatever the books, right? And then the UFC came to Bang before the fight and said, "Hey, man, you know you." They went to Bang and they went to Kuntz, right? And then they asked him about it, and then I guess he got paranoid and went out there and fought and actually won the fight. And then afterwards, like the people that lost all their money, I think it was like 500K. They lost all that money, and they already paid him from what I heard, they might have already paid him like 100K to lose, and and they were looking for him. They were chasing after him, and then that's when he turned himself into the police and confessed everything to kind of protect himself. So it's to me, it's like a bitch move to be honest with you. Like you're gonna be involved in criminal activities and then turn yourself in when it doesn't go your way. That's bitch moves right there for real. Like if you're a criminal, you're a criminal, man. Uh you got to take you got to take it, take it for what it is, man. You did something wrong, man. You got to face the consequences. You cannot run from the consequences. You know what I mean? You know you snitched, dude. You snitched on yourself and you snitched on the people that you were involved with. That's fucked up, man. Like you're doing something wrong. Just terrible. How do you rate Reina skills, and how can she improve? Her skills, she's like a decent fighter, you know what I mean? Is she a championship level fighter? Nah. Kana Sakura would still beat her. I think 10 out of 10 times. Um, I think Reina is a lot of it has to do with the mental side of the game, and plus her ground skills are not very good, man. Her scrambles are not very good. She should just be doing shoot boxing or kickboxing or something like that. I would like to see her do that, but MMA wise, I don't know. She's not really that good, man. She's a big name. She's popular. She's like she has like this cute vibe to her or whatever. But she would get crushed by a lot of girls, a lot of atom weights. But I would like to see her fight. A few of them. I would like to see her fight Ham. Ham would fucking smash her, right? Like legit smash her. But it would be interesting to see like what they do with her, like who she fights next. Because remember they were having her fight like um her last fight actually wasn't that bad. She lost to that girl. and then she came back and got a little revenge on that New Year's Eve card. So it wasn't too bad. Uh, but yeah, Reina, oh, this year she's still young. I feel like she's pretty young. Uh, I wonder what's gonna happen with her with Rizin, and I wonder if like will one championship try to pick her up uh for the atomweight division. She could, maybe fight like uh Gian Razuan or Mei Yamaguchi or yeah, there's some interesting matchups in one championship for her. I would like to see her sign over there, but I'm thinking Ryzen's treats her really really well, so we'll see what happens. All right, we got about like 9 more minutes. I'm gonna stay on. So if you guys got anything else you want to discuss, let me know. Any questions about Asian MMA? That's what this is for. This is for Asian MMA. You know what I mean? Well, of course, we're going to talk about Asian MMA or just MMA in general and what's going on in the MMA world. But, like if you got Asian MMA shit, let's see. All right. Next question is Hirata Izuki getting a lot of hype. Do you see her going far? Um, she's kind of one dimensional, Uh, but I think she's only like 20 or something like that. So the hype, she's getting a little bit of hype, but uh she needs to fight like 4 or 5 more times. I would like to see her fight Mei Yamaguchi. Why not? Let her fight Mei Yamaguchi. If there's a lot of hype around her, let her fight somebody like a veteran like Mei Yamaguchi and see how really good she is. Um and if she could pass that test, then the hype is legit. But if she gets crushed by May, then you go back to the drawing board and you put her against another girl. Maybe you put her against Jian Razuan. Yeah, just there's a bunch of girls, but to be honest with you, I feel like she shouldn't be put against any of like I don't think she should be put against Mei Yamaguchi or Jian Razuan. I feel like the fight that they put together against B Nguyen was the fight that was a good fight. So I feel like they should rebook that fight and and see how she performs against B. If she can do well against B, then yeah. But didn't she just lose? No, maybe no. That was the other girl. That was the other girl. I get her confused with the other girl. Do you know whatever happened to Super Action Channel? No, Super Action Channel is still around. I used to in the early days to follow Korean fighters. Yeah, and that's where all the UFC and Road FC, all those fights or shows were broadcasted on Super Action, but Super Action lost all those like broadcasting deals. So Super Action's still around. I feel like they're still around. And it's just a regular channel. Like it just shows like car shows and stuff like that. All right, let me see. What do you think of God damn this name, right? Mongolians names fucking crazy. Anyways, former Olympic level boxer. Yeah, that dude is legit. He's legit. That fool has some serious knockout power. His last fight, I feel like he knocked out the Japanese dude like clean, and that Japanese dude had no, the Chinese dude. The Chinese dude had a lot of hype, and what is it? Zolt Setsek came in and just crushed that hype, dude. Um, I'm a big believer in that guy. I feel like he's the next Mongolian star for one championship. Uh, where where is he? Zolt Sedzeg. Zolt Sedzeg. Let's see. Zolt Zolt Seg. How do you spell his name? Zolt. What is it? Zolt Setseg. Yeah. Zolt Zolt Setseg. All right. Let's see. Yeah, this dude, man. He looks like a fucking killer. Yeah, he's the next Mongolian star, man. He's not all hype. I feel like he's the next Mongolian star, Zolzedzek. He's exciting, man. I like to go back and look at his highlights, dude. He has some sick knockouts. Some sick ass knockouts, yeah. I wonder who they're gonna put him against next. He fights at featherweight, right? So he's one of the featherweight up and comers. By the end of the year, he should be a title contender. If he gets enough fights, I feel like by the end of the year, he should be a title contender. He should fight Masushima. I feel like he should fight either Masushima. He should fight one of those guys, the guys that actually fought for the title, or guys up in the ranks, like a Masushima, or yeah. You're right there. This right here, yeah. Mahal Jaewin was so well-rounded. I was scared for Zoldzeg in that matchup. And then what did Zoldzeg do? He fucking blasted his ass and had him fucking just he was on drugs. Like he was just fucking it was nasty. Zoldzeg is nasty, man. My Jaewin was one of the guys too. And he's still one of the guys, right? But Zoldzeg went in there and just crushed that shit. Just derailed. Basically what he did is he derailed Wen's hype train and just like put more gas into his hype train with that fight. Do you think Ron Tang ever get a rematch with Tension? Why not, man? Both those guys, why not? They should be able to get it. It's just the promoters, man. Just got to get the promoters in line. If you get the promoters in line, then it should be all good, man. So, yeah, I feel like they will fight. I could see them fighting in one championship because one championship could throw them some good money for that fight and for that title. Rodtang, he carries that title, and I feel like that's in MMA gloves. I would like to see that in MMA gloves, see how good they are. Yeah, Masumisha, yeah, he can be KO'd, but yeah, he is a good wrestler. But I feel like uh this guy, Zolt Setsek, his wrestling is improving too. And I feel like he just carries too much dynamite in his hands to where he cannot. Mm. Where is it? Tension versus Takur. Yeah, of course. That's the fight that everybody talks about. What happened with shows in Asia? What are you talking about? What happened with shows in Asia? They got canceled. A lot of shows got canceled. Korean shows, Chinese shows got canceled. There's a few shows in Japan that are still going, but a lot of them got canceled. Uh, Thailand shows are canceled. They like even like one of the stadiums in Muay Thai stadiums, major ones in Thailand, they had a infection breakout over there. So they had to shut that shit down. Only one championship is having shows in Singapore. Other than that, everything else is pretty much shut. Where does one do boxing only or grappling only matches? They did grappling in the past. Garrett Tonin versus Shinya Aoki. And they did boxing once in the past. I forgot that Thai champion boxer. But those are like the boxing was like a one off. And then the grappling they did a couple. I think they did Murat Gafrov versus Shinya Aoki. I think they've done like 2 or 3 grappling shows. I feel like you get asked this a lot, but seriously, where is Guang Wang? How has he not fought since the Chris? Yeah, it's like where is he? I don't know where he is, man. Like I have no idea where he is. Like everybody wonders where he is. Maybe he's, working at a flea market in central China or something. I don't know exactly where he is. I'm gonna have to research that a little bit. But the next live chat, I'll come back and kind of give you guys an update of where Wang is. I'm gonna have to go to my sources in China and ask about Wang and see. Maybe he's at the PI working out. I don't know. Oh yeah, another thing is before I take off, I'm gonna take off in about 30 seconds. So before I take off, the situation in China, right? So the UFC PI in Shanghai, right? They're gonna reopen that in the beginning of April and reopen in the beginning of April. So all the people, all the fighters, all the coaches and staff that are outside of China, they're flying in they're flying in n- this week, and they're going to be quarantined for 2 weeks. And then after their quarantine, they're going to be able to go back to the PI and start training. And once they start training and getting the PI back to functioning as a normal facility, then that's when they're gonna start lining up the Contender Series Asia. So seems like China's getting back to normal with news that's coming out about the PI and stuff like that. So that's a good sign for people that are looking out for that Contender Series in Asia. It seems like the Contender Series in Vegas is gonna happen in July or something like that in the summer. So they could run simultaneously. I think that would be fun to watch them both run simultaneously. But anyways, um, to everybody that's on the live chat, appreciate you guys for hanging out and asking questions and uh and every Monday I will be doing this at this time most of the time if I can, and appreciate you guys hopping on. Make sure to subscribe and uh and like and leave a comment or whatever the fuck. But yeah. So I usually like to just do 2 hours, and right now it's 2 hours and 1 minute. So thank you so much, everybody, and catch you guys next week, and hopefully we have more to talk about, and anything that you want to know, and if I can answer the questions, come with the questions. I love the questions. Thank you so much. Later.